Unfortunately, no amount of success can stop the worst from happening, and some of the biggest bands in music history have been forced to split up when a member passed on. Here are some successful groups that only broke up because a member died. Nirvana was Kurt Cobain's band through and through. He was the primary songwriter and lead singer, had formed the band, was in charge of personnel decisions, and dictated the direction of the music. It was Cobain's leadership that would make Nirvana one of the most vital rock bands of the 1990s, if not all time. Cobain's fierce ownership of the group's creative spirit threatened to derail their rise as often as it fueled it. In 1992, he wrote an angry letter to the president of his record label, threatening to end the band, and drummer Dave Grohl almost walked away in 1993 after he heard Cobain criticize his drumming abilities. Cobain also struggled with addiction and depression, and in 1994, he took his own life at his home in Seattle.
Where are you right after Kurt dies? Just lost.
The surviving members of Nirvana did eventually reunite in a sense, 2 decades after their heyday. In 2012, Grohl, Chris Novoselic, and Pat Smear performed with a member of another important band that famously never reunited, serving as ex-Beatle Paul McCartney's backing band on Saturday Night Live. The three also performed together at a Hurricane Sandy benefit after hooking up with him in the studio for a new song, Cut Me Some Slack. When Nirvana was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2014, Grohl, Novoselic, and Smear also played with a series of female rock stars past and present taking on vocals, including Joan Jett, Kim Gordon of Sonic Youth, and Lorde. With classics like She's Crafty, Hey Ladies, and Paul Revere, the Beastie Boys helped bring hip-hop into the mainstream in the mid-1980s. The group's breakthrough album, 1986's License to Ill, became the first rap record to top the Billboard charts, which was pretty surprising considering that the New York trio had begun life as a punk band when some of its members were still attending private school. But from the punk days through to their hip-hop heights, the boys stuck together for decades, and that bond led directly to their retirement in 2012, when founder Adam Yauch, better known as MCA, passed away from cancer at just 47 years old. Adam Horovitz, also known as Ad Rock, told GQ in 2015, "We're done. Oh yeah. Adam Yauch started the band. It's not like a thing where we could continue without him." The Beastie Boys have always made it pretty clear that they consider themselves 3 MCs and 1 DJ. When one of the 3 MCs, who had been a part of the band for more than 3 decades, passed away in 2012, they simply couldn't continue to exist. The hip-hop trio A Tribe Called Quest was among the most vital rap groups of the 80s and 90s. But when Tribe reunited to perform on The Tonight Show in November 2015, they hadn't played together in years and hadn't released an album since 1998. Thankfully, however, the stars realigned. As group member Q-Tip said, "The energy for us that night was one that we hadn't experienced on stage together in some time." Sadly, Tribe member Phife Dawg died just a few months later in March 2016 of complications from diabetes. By that point, he'd already recorded much of what would wind up being the Tribe's final album, We Got It From Here, Thank You For Your Service. After releasing Service in November of 2016, the group took a brief victory lap with remaining members Q-Tip and Jarobi White performing anti-gentrification anthem We the People on Saturday Night Live 4 days after the 2016 presidential election. They also played a few more concerts, the final one at Festival 2017 in Dorset, England, when, in the middle of Whatever Will Be, Q-Tip told the crowd, "We lost our boy Phife Dawg. This is going to be our last show as A Tribe Called Quest ever." Many different people contributed to the loud, fast, grimy, and utterly anarchic sound of classic British metal band Motörhead over the years, but the face and heart of the group behind Ace of Spades, Overkill, and Killed by Death was party monster and rock legend Lemmy Kilmister. The gravel-voiced singer formed Motörhead in 1975 and swiftly became a beloved metal icon. Widely known simply as Lemmy, the booze and amphetamine-loving singer lived a fast life, but still made it to the ripe old age of 70, dying from an aggressive cancer just 2 days after he was diagnosed in December 2015. The end of Lemmy spelled the end for Lemmy's band. A few hours after the death of his bandmate, drummer Mickey D told Expressin, "Motörhead is over, of course. Lemmy was Motörhead. We won't be doing any more tours or anything, and there won't be any more records. But the brand survives, and Lemmy lives on in the hearts of everyone." Pink Floyd started off as a playful psychedelic band in the 60s under the leadership of songwriter, guitarist, and singer Syd Barrett. After Barrett left the group in 1968 due to serious mental health issues, Floyd went full-on prog rock in the 1970s and early 80s, releasing a bunch of classic LPs that explored weighty concept-driven themes. The band frequently clashed over creative direction, and bassist Roger Waters wanted to do his own thing so bad that he left for a solo career in the mid-'80s. The group continued on for a decade without him, releasing the hugely popular albums A Momentary Lapse of Reason and The Division Bell, but the only time Waters ever returned was for a Pink Floyd reunion show at Live 8, the 2005 climate change awareness concert. A full Pink Floyd reunion subsequently became impossible. Barrett, who spent much of his post-Pink life in virtual seclusion, died in 2006, and keyboardist Richard Wright passed away in 2008. Drummer Nick Mason and frontman David Gilmour pieced together unreleased material to form the final Floyd album, 2014's The Endless River, but it was never meant as anything more than a belated coda. In 2015, Gilmour told Entertainment Weekly, "We are done, and it would be fakery to go back and do it again." Part of what made Led Zeppelin so distinctive was the drumming ability of John Bonzo Bonham, whose volcanic riffs helped make them one of the biggest rock bands on Earth, all while he earned a reputation for the hard-partying lifestyle that would eventually kill him. Bonham's body was discovered on September 25, 1980 at guitarist Jimmy Page's mansion in Windsor, England, where he'd spent the previous day rehearsing while knocking back quadruple vodka shots. According to the coroner's report, Bonham consumed roughly 40 servings of vodka and passed out, unable to wake when his body started to expel the booze. He inhaled his vomit and died. About 10 weeks later, in December 1980, Led Zeppelin announced their split via a press release. Cause of breakup? John Bonham's death, in no uncertain terms. The group wrote, "We wish it to be known that the loss of our dear friend and the deep respect we have for his family, together with the sense of undivided harmony felt by ourselves and our manager, have led us to decide that we could not continue as we were." The decision has stuck, too. Page, singer Robert Plant, and bassist multi-instrumentalist John Paul Jones have been persuaded to briefly reunite for charity every now and again, and Page and Plant hooked up for a pair of Zepp-adjacent LPs in the 90s, but calls for a full reunion have gone unanswered. Plant in particular has proven stubbornly unwilling to consider it. He said in 2018, "Led Zeppelin was an amazing, prolific fun factory for a period of time, but it was 3 amazing musicians and a singer living in the times. Those times. That's not going to stop me doing what I'm doing now." Few bands are more synonymous with the 1960s counterculture than the Grateful Dead. Jerry Garcia's band of merry musicians certainly looked the part and provided the soundtrack of a generation with their groovy, guitar-based jam sessions, which quickly inspired a cult-like following. Jerry Garcia subsequently became an icon, leading the Dead through a nearly endless tour of 30 years, but when he died, so did the Grateful Dead. In August 1995, the 53-year-old musician succumbed to a heart attack, his body weakened by numerous health problems over the years, including drug addiction and type 2 diabetes. 4 months later, the rest of the band, including guitarist Bob Weir and drummer Mickey Hart, announced that the Dead were, well, dead. In a statement, the band said, "The remaining members of the band met yesterday and came to the conclusion that the long, strange trip of the uniquely wonderful beast known as the Grateful Dead is over. Although individually and in various combinations they will undoubtedly continue to make music, whatever the future holds will be something different in name and structure." That statement proved prophetic. Although the Grateful Dead ended with Jerry Garcia, the surviving members have continued to move on in one another's creative orbits, recording and touring under a variety of Dead-like configurations that have traded in on the group's enduring legacy. Most recently, guitarist John Mayer has joined up with a group of Dead vets for the collective dubbed Dead & Company. When a band is actually named after one of its members, it's going to be pretty hard for the rest to soldier on together after that member's death. But it's not outside the realm of possibility. After Buddy Holly famously died in a plane crash in 1959, Buddy Holly and the Crickets became the Crickets, and they carried on for decades with several different lead singers. If they'd wanted to, the Heartbreakers could have stayed together after Tom Petty passed away in 2017, only days after finishing a huge 40th anniversary tour, but it just wasn't meant to be. In one of his final interviews, Petty said the band would be taking a richly deserved break, but it wasn't supposed to be the end. He told the Los Angeles Times, "If one of us went down, or if one of us died, God forbid, or got sick, then we'd stop. I think that would be the end of it if someone couldn't do it." The lineup had weathered departures before, but the death of Petty himself has almost certainly spelled the end for the Heartbreakers as a creative unit, although the surviving members were persuaded to reunite for a mini-set at a charity show in early 2018. Nobody embraced the starkness and darkness of the late 70s post-punk movement quite like Joy Division. Combining moody lyrics and haunting instrumentation, the English band released just 2 albums, including the legendary Unknown Pleasures and a handful of singles, such as the beloved goth classic Love Will Tear Us Apart. In May 1980, the band was set to embark on its first tour of the United States. But they didn't make the trip. Just before their planned departure, lead singer Ian Curtis took his own life. Curtis was prone to mood swings and depression, possibly exacerbated by the powerful barbiturates prescribed for his epilepsy, which wasn't helped by his busy and stressful life on the road. Later that year, the surviving members of Joy Division moved on together as New Order, embracing synthesizers and a somewhat sunnier approach. They became one of Britain's biggest bands of the 80s.
We didn't have to do much grieving. We just buried our heads in New Order, stuck together, and ignored it, basically.
While their reformation came as a response to a tragic situation, Joy Division member Stephen Morris has speculated that a breakup probably would have happened sooner rather than later had Curtis lived. In 2012, he told GQ, "If I'm honest, I don't think we would have carried on anyway because of Ian's illness. I think we'd have knocked the whole thing on the head." If you or anyone you know is having suicidal thoughts, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK.